Hello and welcome. My name is Malcolm Tyree. This is the Lead Square Call. Today, I'm joined by a colleague in ministry here in the state of Texas, a fellow minister, credentialed minister for the Church of God, Lisa Pearson, who's the executive director of a pregnancy resource center. And today, we're going to talk about the controversial topic of abortion. It's a hot topic. Since the ruling of Roe v. Wade in 1973, the topic of abortion has increasingly dominated American political and religious dialogue. And with the recent Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization overruling that 1973 Roe v. Wade and subsequent court opinions, how we talk about abortion is even more under attack. The rising generation of teenagers and young adults, they've heard the narrative of freedom and choice in every aspect of their lives, and they are struggling to navigate the current rulings and how they apply legally. Additionally, the published statistics inform us that abortion is filled with complex definitions and varying levels of support. The singular topic has galvanized people and been repeatedly used as a wedge in our society for political gains of power brokers and systems of control. And that brings us to today's episode. How can the local church lead in the conversation regarding abortion? Lisa, thanks for joining in. Glad to have you here. Take just a moment and fill in my audience with regards to what it is that you do professionally with regards to pregnancies and helping women.
Okay. I am the executive director of the Pregnancy Resource Medical Center. My center is one of about 2,500 in the United States, each individually operated, but we all have the same focus, same goal, and that's to help young women with unplanned pregnancies. My journey with the Pregnancy Center began as a volunteer, just wanting to be able to talk to someone about Christ. And it wound up being something that intertwined with pregnancy and helping those young women with unplanned pregnancies. So the good part about what I do and the part that I love about that is, although we're educating and providing information to these young mothers and their families, we're also able to introduce Christ. And for me, that's a double whammy, because you think about saving the physical life of an unborn child, but then you also get to pour into the spiritual life of these mothers and their families as well.
Well, thank you for the work that you've been involved in for, I think you told me 9 years, if I heard that right.
10 total.
10 years. Yeah. So thank you for the work over the past decade. Obviously, this past decade has been filled with a lot of, ratcheted up the intensity with regards to the conversation. And I'm just curious, from your vantage point as somebody who's an executive director of a pregnancy resource center, how can church leaders, pastors and ministers be a part of de-escalating the divisive rhetoric regarding abortion?
We believe that education is the key. Knowledge is the key. We often refer to Psalms 139 when it quotes that you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. And when you think about that in the respect of life, life begins in the womb. And if our pastors and our leaders, I think, will take a more of a role as to educating their congregation, educating themselves, let me start there, and then educating their congregations as to when life begins, what happens in that womb, it'll make it, to me, a lot more easier to make a decision. Forget the terms pro-life, forget the terms pro-choice. When you're talking about an individual life, a human life that you're responsible for, whether you terminate it, whether you decide to go through with the pregnancy, that's a major part of helping others to understand, because you would be surprised how many young women come to our center having a clue. I'm pregnant, they just think that, oh, it's just a clump of cells, it's just a blob of tissue, not understanding that at 6 weeks, you already have brain function, you already have organs that have already been formed, you've already have limbs, you can hear a heartbeat at 6 weeks. So I think education is a major key. And then for pastors to in turn inform and help to educate their congregation, letting them know. It gives a bit of sensibility of okay, if this happens to me now, I understand. I'm a little bit more clearer than just not having any kind of information at all.
One of the critiques of the pro-life movement has been that it's been appears to be more pro-baby and doesn't think about the life of the mother. And I want to just take a few moments and just share some statistics that have been put out by Pew Research and others that help us think a little bit about the life of the mother. And I want to get some feedback from you as to some things that tie into that understanding of the life of the child when formed, but then the life of the woman who is carrying the child. According to Pew Research has published information from other statistical groups, somewhere around 85% of reported abortions were among unmarried women. I don't think very many people are surprised by that.
Yeah.
But 60% of reported abortions were by women who had already experienced at least one live birth. 58% of abortions that were reported were by women who had not previously had an abortion, so it was their first time. 57 were by women in their 20s, and somewhere around 38% of all abortions in 2019 were by non-Hispanic Black women, and 33% were by non-Hispanic white women. So the vast majority of abortions are being performed by those who would identify as traditionally Black and traditionally white here in the United States. The sixth one here, there are approximately 14 abortions for every 1,000 women between the ages of 15 and 44 years of age. Not number of pregnancies, but just women. Mm-hmm. And in 1990, that was the highest year of recorded abortions, with approximately 1.6 million. And then in 2020, the number of abortions that was reported was approximately 40% less than that high in 1990. Now, as you think about those statistics and really thinking about the life of the woman who is carrying the pregnancy, what stands out to you? What are some things that maybe from your perspective, church leaders need to be considering? How do you feel about those, and what should the church think about those?
As I was preparing for tonight, one thing that really came to me was preparing our young people when it comes to sexual integrity. If you talk to them ahead of time, and I know that's not going to be 100%, but if you can, as we say, if you can save one, then it makes a difference. But if you are educating your young people on the importance of sexual integrity, understanding who you are, what you were created for, how your body is the temple of Christ, and you should treat it as such, especially if we're calling ourselves Christian, and to be mindful of that. One of the things that we talk about when ladies come to us, especially when they're in a situation where they're living together, or they're not married, or have multiple partners, understanding that you have value. Your body is valuable, your mind is valuable. And when you are sleeping with all of these individual people, how you are attracting those spirits and those things that are within them because you are connecting with them physically. So I think if we can teach our young people to value themselves, to value and honor the commitment that you make with Christ, to be faithful, to be obedient, to do what Christ has commanded, and to take care of the temple that he has given.
Interesting there that, the sense in which, you lifted up again the value of life, that it seems to come back to that, there's the value of life in the formation, but then there's the value of life in the way you live it. Yes. And I think that that's an important thing for us to kind of wrestle through and make some sense on. From your vantage point, what are some of the factors that are leading women or families to really consider terminating a pregnancy? What are the circumstances that are surrounding it? You've mentioned one. There could be an educational deficiency, but what would be some others that would fit into there?
My highest age group are my college students. That's who we see mostly. And for them, it's I've set a course, I'm going to school, I'm going to start this career, I'm going to do this. A baby is not a part of that equation. And so we have to let them understand and know that this may not have been a part of your plan, but here we are. You can still achieve your goals. You can still move forward, whatever career that you are choosing to go in. You may have to take a little detours to do things a little differently, but just because you find yourself in a state of pregnancy does not mean that those goals cannot be met. The other thing is we do have moms. I think our oldest one was like 46 years old. I've got 5 kids already. I can't have another one. I can't afford it. But to understand that that's still not just a quick fix, is to go out and terminate the pregnancy. And that's one thing that health centers do. We walk alongside those mothers. I had one mom that actually she had triplets, and she was carrying a baby on her hip when she came in. So, for her, it's like, I can't do this again. I'm still not financially able to take care of this one that I have. But for my field and for pregnancy centers, we're there to walk beside them. And so, we're there with you. Whatever you need, we can help you. If we can help you, we want to be able to refer you to somebody who can. But it's more than just about saving the baby in the womb. You've got a mom, you've got a dad that you can save the baby in the womb. But if you never educate them or show them or help them help themselves, it's almost a mute point. So walking along with them, helping them to get to a place where they can take care of their child, financially stable, whatever, emotionally stable, whatever we can do to help them to be able to sustain.
So we've got, education component. People don't know where life begins. We have an education component in the fact that somebody says, hey, this is, my career, this is my livelihood, this is the direction I'm moving, and this is ill time. And so because I'm in education right now, I'm not prepared for this.
Right.
And then there's a financial factor
Yeah.
that plays into it. Yeah, I want to read to you just I don't know if it's short or not, but it's in 2016. You may be familiar with this. Maya Angelou, the poet laureate, former poet laureate. She said, when I was 16, a boy in high school invested interest in me, so I had sex with him just once. And after I came out of that room, I thought, is that all there is to it? A little education piece there. My goodness, I'll never do that again. Then, when I found out I was pregnant, I went to the boy and asked him for help, but he said it wasn't his baby and he didn't want any part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I was scared to pieces. Back then, if you had money, there were some girls who got abortions, but I couldn't deal with that idea. Oh no. I knew there was somebody inside me, so I decided to keep the baby. And she goes on and she, talks about, her experience and the nature of, what she missed, what she would have missed out on had she
Mm-hmm.
aborted her son, her child, and how that played out because she never was able to have children later, and
Yes.
and those pieces. And Maya Angelou is somebody that I would think that many would be surprised to imagine that she said no, 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 I choose life as to opposed to being a teen girl who would promote, because oftentimes her legacy is tied in with more liberal positions. And here in 2016 she wrote this very eloquent piece. You can find it on Facebook if you Google it.
Yeah.
um, when we're talking with these young women and men, because they're a part of the factor, part of it as well, and they're wrestling with these challenges and the sense of immediacy, the impact on them right now.
Mm-hmm.
What are some things that maybe you've discovered that help them see that right now it may look bad, or right now it's going to be hard,
Yeah.
but let's look beyond right now.
Right. Right.
What are maybe
And
even some things that we don't talk about with regards to someone chooses abortion to solve a problem right now that carries with it a longer lasting impact?
yeah, yeah. That's one of the things that there's a lot of controversy about, because you find some women who have had abortions that, oh, I'm fine, everything's cool, there was no problems, it was all, it's a piece of cake. But then you hear testimonies of women who have had them and they still are traumatized 30, 40 years later about what happened to them. A lot of times when I'm talking to people, I don't argue and try to, change their perspective. But what I do ask them to do is look into the actual procedures that are taken when an abortion happens. Okay. I mean, you may start off, if it's early on, you take a pill. Well, that pill is going to basically stop all the hormones in your body from doing what it needs to do to carry that child. They send you home with that. Then after so long, you take that second pill. Well, that second pill puts you into labor. And guess what? You do all of that at home. You're not in a doctor's office. So you're literally giving birth to a dead fetus at home by yourself. So you hear stories of women say, I was in my bathroom for so many hours. It was just a horrible state. I thought I had to go to the restroom, and, it happened then. And then you look at the other procedures, and it gets very detailed. So I always encourage people, before you make a decision, look at that. And then to think about the trauma that happens mentally. If, going through those type of situations, you have women who have had miscarriages and who are saddened and who are, because they've lost a child that they wanted. Well, they're going through basically the same thing, because it is terminating a pregnancy. And even the other ones, the other procedures that you look at that are traumatizing. I was looking at some of we actually use a booklet called A Woman's Right to Know, that the state of Texas, the Department of Health and Human Services, gave out before all of the post-Roe stuff. We've actually stopped giving it out because we know that book is going to be updated. But it gives a list of all of the statistics, all of the risks that go along with it, and the mental trauma that goes along with it as well. So that's why I said, it's easy to say for some people that it's a quick fix. Let's get this done over with. But you're not there with that person at night when they're crying over what has happened, the shame and the guilt that they feel after it's over with. And some of them may never tell that, but that's some of the things that some of them do go through.
I think the explanation that you just gave regarding the pill is something that many of us are probably unaware of, and that we oftentimes associate a pill as an easy resolve, an easy solution, but it sounds like pill one sounds simple, but pill two sounds very hard and difficult on the mother, the woman carrying the pregnancy at the time. So I think that, thank you for taking the moment to educate us a little bit on that, kind of the piece of it. When we look at the statistics, and you said it based on your experience, that most of the women that you are encountering who are considering abortion as an option, they're in their, let's call it, 20s. You said college age. Statistically, a single mother, maybe even more specifically, a single Black mother in her 20s appears to be most likely the type of person who would opt for an abortion. How can the church be more engaged in the lives of single mothers in their 20s, so that way we can help them, identify issues with regards to sexual integrity, and if there is a pregnancy, what does the church need to do to be more active in ministry? Because I would guess, if you looked around our churches, single mothers in their 20s are not populating our pews.
That's interesting, because I've seen so many statistics where it talks about how many women sitting on the pews on Sunday morning have had abortions, how many pastors' wives that have had abortions. And I think a lot of it probably goes back to us as a church body being very judgmental. If I come to you with this, I'm going to be shamed. You're going to make me feel bad. You're going to make me feel embarrassed. Why would I open myself up to that? I'm already in a place that I don't want to be in. To go to try to get help from a church body who has already judged me because I'm single, I'm not pregnant, I have no spouse. So all of those things come into play. And for me, it is learning how not to be so judgmental. Sin is sin. It doesn't matter, sex outside of marriage, sin is sin. And so if we're going to be the church that we claim to be, we need to be able to accept people and not make them feel embarrassed or shamed because they come to leadership to get some kind of guidance. To let them know that there is help. The church is supposed to be a hospital. That's where people come for help. That's where people come for healing. And so for us to be open enough to have those vivid conversations, just like sexual integrity, a vivid conversation about, okay, here's where you are. Let's make a plan. It does not have to stop here. How can we help you get to the next point? What can we do to help sustain you through this process? So just being more open and more honest about whatever situation that is being faced, I think will help a lot.
Yeah. That's a really, a significant piece, that judgmental piece, and thinking about, if a single mother is who is engaged in sexual activity is the most likely one who is going to, seek an abortion for the next pregnancy, to kind of think through the fact that, one, we don't have a lot of them in the pews. Why don't we have a lot of them in the pews? It's because they're already a single mother and the church has already judged them for that. Isn't going to welcome them in. Is something that I think we have to wrestle strongly and deeply with regards to our convictions and our conscience of, who is qualified for the grace of God.
Right.
Who's qualified for is a single mother someone that we can welcome in? And single mothers, they have a lot of work trying to get up and moving to get to church, especially if they got, more than one kid. It gets more complex, and many times their work schedules don't work out and such. And so, I think maybe as the church, we need to just kind of be more attuned to where is it that we would find single mothers, so that way we can minister to. I don't know. I think that judgmental side of, do we even look for single mothers to help them, or do we look at single mothers to judge them?
Yes.
Wow. Thanks for that.